me now. A great pleasure, indeed an honor. The aforementioned mayor of New York City, Mr. Eric Adams, who just launched his re-election bid as an independent candidate. Mayor, thank you for this. I know you're busy. I am most grateful, sir, most grateful. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you very much. And I believe you articulated what choice we are facing. Are we facing one who wants to defund our police, or one who believes that law enforcement is the prerequisite to our prosperity, and one that understands that a healthy financial ecosystem includes bringing in large companies to hire everyday employees so that they could have a quality of life. And I think what is most troubling about what the socialist candidate is stating is his calls to give everything away free. Nothing is more troubling when people who are struggling are giving promises that individuals can't live up to. Mayors don't have the power to raise income taxes. That is what is the basis of all the things he's going to pay for. Assemblymen have that power. He's an assemblyman. He didn't do it when he was in Albany. He had the power to do many of the things he's stating now. After 4 years in Albany, he did not pass one bill. So either he doesn't understand the role of a mayor, or he's intentionally misleading people who are looking for help around the affordability issue.
Well, you called him a snake oil salesman, and I think that that may fit because he suddenly has blossomed into this. There's something he didn't do up in the assembly. Now he says he wants to do as mayor, but you can't do it as mayor. Look, you know, the great thing about socialism, A, it doesn't work wherever it's been tried, but B, socialists eventually run out of other people's money. People will leave the city. You've said this before. You and I have talked about this before. I mean, you won't be able to get an airplane out of LaGuardia or Newark because everybody's going to be moving to Palm Beach, Florida, or, you know, Nashville, Tennessee, or Dallas, Texas, or something like that. How can he not understand that? You're not going to tax people to death by giving everything away for free, Mayor.
It's not acceptable. And then you're hurting working class people. When you look at small property owners, people who have 10, 12 unit housing, he's talking about not ever raising rent on the tenants. By raising a modest small rent, you allow these small property owners to be able to pay the increase in taxes, the increase in water bills, electricity, repairs. If you fail to allow that, we're going to return to the 70s when many people were walking away from their properties. No one wanted to insure the properties, and we saw urban decay. And who was hurt the most by this are the same people he represents. Listen, this candidate is not a blue collar, working class person. I spent 22 years as a police officer. I'm a blue collar, working class mayor. He came from wealth. He went to some of the most prestigious schools. His family is from wealth. So when you talk about the struggles, I know those struggles because I grew up in those struggles with a mother who was raising 6 children on her own. I know what homelessness feels like. I know what it is to go without meals. This is a person that did not have one difficult day in his life. 4 years in assembly. He wants to run the most complicated city in the country, if not the globe. We deserve better as New Yorkers.
Mayor, haven't we learned that defunding the police is a terrible idea? Voters want safe streets, and voters like cops. And you are an ex-NYPD cop. I mean, haven't we learned that lesson?
We know that voters want public safety and proper policing. And we identify anyone who carries out any improper policing. There's a level of nobility that's attached to law enforcement. And we have over 30,000 police officers who run towards danger, not running away from it. And when I go to town halls, to older adult centers, to schools, and I speak to residents, I have not met one resident that state, I don't want a police officer on my block or in my community. I've never heard that. Yet you have the far left that constantly push the narrative that law enforcement is disliked by everyday working class people. That is not true. A smile comes on your face when you're on the subway system where 4.6 million riders use every day, and that police officer walks through. There's a sense of comfort and there's a sense of safety. And I'm going to continue to support my public safety apparatus, all of them, because I always say that's the prerequisite to our prosperity.
Well, you and Jessica Tisch put a lot of new cops down the subway system, and the crime fell sharply. I mean, I think you got to run on that. That's a huge issue.
Well said. And as I stated, 4.6 million riders on our system, and we have an average of only 5 felonies a day. Just think about those numbers. When you have that large number of people, it is really commendable what police officers are doing every day. And then when you look above ground, removing 22,000 illegal guns off our streets, 80,000 ghost vehicles, illegal vehicles that are used in crimes, closing 1,400 illegal cannabis shops, and our quality of life division that is dealing with what people feel is contributing to unsafety. There's a real holistic approach that we're doing, and going after justice-involved young people, putting them on the right pathway to be employed and be productive citizens to our city.
Well, you know, you may have heard this when I interviewed Tom Homan yesterday, head of the board of czar. He called you the law and order candidate, and he said you've been very cooperative with him as he tries to deport criminals. Not everyday people who have been working here for a long time, but criminals, gang members who are menacing, you know, murders and rape and various sex and drug traffickers. He gave you good praise. Will you be able to continue to work with Tom Homan and his ICE agents?
And think about it. 79% of New Yorkers agree with my position that those who commit dangerous crimes in our city after they serve their time, they should be deported. You invalidated your right to be here in this country when you prey on innocent people. And when we took down a dangerous gang with our federal partners, including ICE, we saw that it was 27 individuals. They were also preying on other migrants and undocumented people. They were forcing women into prostitution. They were robbing. They were shooting. They were committing all sorts of felonious acts. And when people want to think that this city is going to be a safe harbor for criminal behavior, it's not going to happen as long as I'm the mayor of the city. I'm going to fight to protect working class people in the city. And I said over and over again, ICE is a law enforcement agency. Our laws don't allow us to collaborate for civil enforcement, but we will collaborate for criminal enforcement, and that's what we're doing.
Yes, sir. Got it. 100%. Now, you know, you and I have talked about this. I'm the supply sider in town. How about just even a modest tax cut? This socialist wants to jack up everybody's taxes, so they're all going to move to Florida. How about Mayor Eric Adams in the second term fighting for a modest tax cut, maybe for small businesses? Or, you know, years ago, Rudy Giuliani reduced the sales tax, and it was, you know, everybody loved that too. You know, give us a little tax relief, Mayor.
You know, we've done something amazing in this city. We put $30 billion back into pockets of working class people, decreasing the cost of child care for $220 a month to less than $20 a month. We pay for the college tuition of foster care children so they won't age out and slip through the cracks. We gave them life coaches until they're 21. We are excusing medical debt, billions of dollars in medical debt, #1 cause of bankruptcy. And we did something else to talk specifically about taxes. For the first time, we were able to successfully get Albany to drop the income tax for low-income New Yorkers so that they don't have to pay any income tax in this city. And we're looking, no matter what crisis we went through, having to spend $7 billion on the migrants and asylum seeker crisis from the previous administration, we did not raise any taxes or we did not have to do any layoffs. We showed that fiscal management is important, and that's why bond raters increased my bond, because we have the ability to navigate ourselves through the crises and not put it on the backs of everyday New Yorkers.
All right. So anyway, Andrew Cuomo's dropping out of the race altogether. That opens an important lane for you, doesn't it?
Well, I think the former governor is going to make the decision what he's doing in the next day. We are hoping that he would. We don't want to in any way give more fuel to the candidate that won the Democratic primary. We don't need a socialist in City Hall. We need someone that's a visionary. This is a city where we're the financial capital of the globe. We need businesses to come here, and we need a full understanding of our financial ecosystem and a major disruption to that ecosystem. We don't want to lose Wall Street. We don't want to lose our corporations. We don't want to lose our high income earners. That ecosystem, make sure we have police on our street, make sure we have teachers in our schools. We're able to pick up our garbage. This is a complete ecosystem. And I just believe that our socialist candidate don't fully understand the full scope of the running a city of this magnitude.
Well, Mayor Eric Adams, you sound great. And thank you very much for this interview. We appreciate it. I know you're busy. Good luck on the campaign trail, and thanks again, sir.
Thank you. Take care.